Malcontent News is a team of journalists, activists, and researchers with three key missions. A commitment to show an unfiltered view of the before, during, and after of key events, live, as it happens. To defend the First Amendment using our rights of a free press. And to amplify the voices of underrepresented individuals including Black, Indigenous, persons of color, and the LGBTQIA+ community. Our team is committed to seeking equality for all and holding those in power accountable. The easiest way to support Malcontent News is to bookmark our website at malcontentnews.com, like and follow us on Facebook, subscribe to us on YouTube, and follow us on Twitter, Twitch, Instagram, and in the Google News app. To provide financial support, you can become a patron, make a one-time donation through Venmo, or link your Twitch account to your Amazon Prime account and use your free subscription to subscribe to Malcontent News. Thank you for supporting independent journalism and for being a malcontent. Good evening, Malcontents. My name is David, and I am the Malcontent. Today is Thursday, April 1st, 2021, and we may have some surprises waiting for you later on tonight. Let me pull in my co-host, Jennifer. Jennifer, how are you doing this evening?
Oh, man, it's been a crazy day, David. Crazy busy. But you can relate, I'm sure. We pushed everything up to the wire, but we got stuff done, so I am doing okay. How are you?
We're almost winging it tonight.
Yes.
We went from, it's a slow news night, to an interview opportunity, which we'll be playing tonight, and then breaking news out of King County tonight, which has made things a little wacky for us under the wire. And Jennifer's 100% right. We were programming buttons and setting things up like maybe just 2 minutes ago. So fingers crossed, we have a couple of untested macros tonight. This is where I tell you to spam those hearts. Please spam those hearts and mess with the Facebook algorithm. We're not on Periscope anymore, but we are still on Twitter. So you can spam hearts, I believe, there on Twitter. If you're watching us on Twitch or YouTube, I know you can't, but you can just put a big long line of hearts or something in the comments and say, "Love you, mods." And they really appreciate it because our mods are paid in hearts. And they work very hard so that Jennifer and I don't have to see the icky comments. Jennifer, with that, are we ready to do the land acknowledgement?
We are. Let's do it.
All right.
Malcontent News comes to you from Seattle, Washington, the occupied homelands of Coast Salish peoples. We are grateful to live and work as guests on these lands, the land which touches the shared waters of all tribes and bands within the Duwamish, Suquamish, Tulalip, and Muckleshoot nations. This land acknowledgement is but one small gesture in the ongoing process of working toward repairing and sustaining relations with Coast Salish lands, waters, peoples, and their other than human kin.
Jennifer, thank you so much for doing that. I love that you've added to that show. I know I say it every show that we do, but I think it's really critical that we acknowledge the land that we're on and the permanent debt that we carry for being able to use this land. And with that, I think we're just going to go ahead and jump into the first story tonight because we've got a lot to cover.
Yes, we do.
Our first story takes us out of King County, where today, right late afternoon, King County Detective George Alvarez was fired by the King County Sheriff's Department for, and I quote, making extremely poor tactical and officer safety decisions, which led up to a fatal shooting in Cumberland, Washington in 2019. Jennifer, the first thing that jumps out at me, I didn't know there was a Cumberland, Washington, let alone that Cumberland, Washington is in King County, not to minimize the situation, but that was, I'm going to, after the show, I'm going to go look on a map because that's the kind of geek that I am. And I want to know where Cumberland is. So what happened was a man was shot, Anthony Chilcott, and Anthony Chilcott was killed by King County Sheriff's deputy. The firing does not relate to the use of force, and the firing does not relate to the killing of Anthony Chilcott. Chilcott stole a Ford pickup truck at a gas station. He drove off, took the pump nozzle and everything, and the person that owned the truck, their poodle was inside. A few days later, former Sheriff Deputy Alvarez, who was a plainclothes detective, was with another detective in an unmarked vehicle. They saw the truck, they saw Chilcott, and they saw the poodle. Per policy, because they were in a completely unmarked vehicle with no light and siren, and they weren't in uniform or had anything that identified them as police, they were supposed to get on the radio and say, hey, we got this, and they're supposed, but George Alvarez decided to take care of the situation himself. So he pulled up alongside the vehicle. They got into a shouting match with Chilcott. They didn't wait for backup. Chilcott then allegedly rammed the unmarked sheriff's deputy SUV, and the two vehicles became stuck together. Sheriff Alvarez then approached the truck that Chilcott was in with a sledgehammer, smashed out the window, and got in essentially a wrestling match over the keys of the pickup truck with Chilcott. In that, Alvarez claims that Chilcott got a hold of his gun. Both deputies at that point felt they were in danger. They fired their weapons, and Chilcott was killed. That was in November of 2019. And again, the issue there, Jennifer, wasn't the use of the death. The reason they got fired was for not radioing for backup, trying to make an arrest out of uniform, not identifying themselves as police officers, and firing when there was apparently like broad daylight and a lot of other people around in the area that they were in, with kind of wanton disregard for public safety. So King County Sheriff fired Detective Alvarez. Not easy to get a police officer fired in the state of Washington.
No, so I actually know where Cumberland is. I have family that lives in Ravensdale, which is not actually far from Cumberland, and it's very small, going towards like Enumclaw, past Maple Valley and that area. So it doesn't actually, like, we always talk about driving through those areas and things, what a pain in the ass the cops are there, because they, really don't have a lot going on and like to pull people over. But to approach somebody's car unmarked and pull some savior bullshit with a sledgehammer and then, try to wrestle him for the keys without calling for backup. What the hell was this dude thinking?
Jennifer, all I know is that if somebody started yelling at me and then comes at my vehicle with a sledgehammer and starts smashing windows out, it's on with a capital O. I am fighting for my life at that point. If they're just dressed like I am right now.
Exactly. So, he could say he's a cop, but, we've seen incidences of people saying they're cops and not being cops. So who is he? How is he to know for sure that that's what's happening, even though, he has stolen this vehicle, but still to approach somebody's vehicle as a cop in an unmarked car, likely in street clothes, with a sledgehammer is pretty bold, and just kind of like, I don't know, reeks of some kind of weird power complex.
It does really reek of mistakes. The other thing that I'm a little surprised is typically when officers are staring down being fired, they resign, because if they resign, they avoid the fire on their record and they get to go be a police officer somewhere else all over again. So it is a little surprising to me that he stuck it out until fired. I would presume that there is a very onerous appeal process that they will go through at this point, and we'll see what happens. We'll continue to monitor this story. There is the possibility that former Detective Alvarez, won't appeal, but I don't want to put words or thoughts in the man's head. But typically, what we see, they appeal and they fight tooth and nail on these decisions, not just here in King County, but on a national level. Yeah,
absolutely. So I'm curious to see how this plays out, but definitely look up Cumberland on a map, look it up on Google. And population is really small, little tiny small town out headed towards like Mount Rainier and Enumclaw.
Yeah, I'm seeing in the comments, people are like, I had to Google where it is. It's like there was a whole convo scrolling by on where it's located. Jennifer will keep track of that story. We're going to go ahead and move on to, this was going to be our top story tonight, but the King County story broke. And so we're going to move on to what is story number 2. It was meant to be story number 1.
Okay.
When people think of the date of the weekend of July 25 here in the Seattle area, particularly if you were in the protest community, if you were a street medic, if you were a journalist, or for that matter, if you were SPD, July 25 is a very infamous date. July 25 wasn't just super spicy for Seattle. It was super spicy across the United States. And there were major incidents that happened. And one of the biggest ones that happened on that weekend was in Austin. I'm going to tell you a little bit of a backstory, but first what I'm going to do is I'm going to roll a little bit of a clip. We're going to fill in some blanks. I'm going to roll another clip. And then we're going to have an interview on an individual that witnessed this event that happened in Austin back on March 29. So first, let me tell you the story of Garrett Foster.
Everybody back up!
A 28-year-old named Garrett Foster was shot and killed Saturday during a Black Lives Matter protest in Austin, Texas. His aunt spoke to CBS's affiliate there.
His wife being African American and he being a champion of justice and wanting to make sure that all people are treated fairly and equally, he was at those protests diligently.
Authorities say Foster was holding an AK-47 and walking toward a car as shots were fired from inside the vehicle, hitting Foster.
Jenny, of course, it's been a lot of sadness, a lot of frustration, but then on top of that, a whole lot of respect for Garrett Foster. Now, many of the people here tonight have been marching with Foster for the past weeks and months during these protests. The vigil got started around 7:15. It was originally scheduled for 8 o'clock this evening, and people held moments of silence to honor Foster, and others continued the chants we've heard throughout these protests. Around 8:30, Foster's fiance Whitney arrived at the vigil with her mom. Her mom, Patricia, created the GoFundMe last night to help pay for funeral and memorial expenses.
So let me give you a little bit more of the story, because what we've shown you are clips that happen within the 24 to 48 hours of the aftermath of the shooting. We've shown you the before, and a little bit of the during. I want to fill in some holes for you here. Garrett Foster enlisted in the United States Air Force. He was only in the Air Force for a few months. And his fiancee, who by all accounts that he adored, Whitney Mitchell, became very, very ill with a mysterious illness. And Whitney got sepsis. And because of her illness, she had to have her arms and legs at the above the knee and above the elbows amputated to save her life. Garrett got essentially a hard luck discharge, an honorable hard luck discharge, because he had to become the full-time caregiver for Whitney. And by all reports, Garrett and Whitney's love was a love of the ages. They adored each other. And you think about a 19-year-old young man with his entire life in front of him. A lot of 19-year-old young men starting a military career, looking at a potential lifetime of caring for a fully disabled spouse, would say bail. Garrett was a good guy. Whitney wanted to go to the Black Lives Matter protests, and Garrett was supporting her in that because she was black, and they saw firsthand the unacceptance that they had as a biracial couple. Garrett was carrying an AK-47 because he was carrying it to protect himself and other protesters. And Texas is an open carry state, and Texas certainly has a reputation of loving its guns. What happened that night is that a car drove through the protests. And among the people who were almost hit was Whitney in her wheelchair. Garrett went to approach the vehicle. The windows were rolled down. The man in the vehicle thought initially that Garrett was a police officer. And if you go look for pictures of Garrett, he kind of does cut that image. Let's remember, he had just gotten out of the military. He's a young man in good physical condition. Shots were fired by both men. Garrett was dead. The other man drove off. Another individual who was with the Black Lives Matter protest also fired as the car drove off. And Whitney, we refer to her in the interview that we're going to play later. I refer to her as a widow because I thought they were married. But Whitney lost the love of her life. And we have to remember in all of this that Whitney lost her limbs, her freedom, and her love, all in the span of a few months. And so what happens next is they were having a memorial, a vigil, to remember Garrett and other victims of police violence in Austin. And the video we're going to show you next, we ran the clip before. This is another one. This is a hard video to watch. And I'm going to go ahead and roll that clip.
Get out of the roadway. 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 Hey, let's back up. Get out of the roadway. Touch me. Get out of the roadway. Fuck you. Get out of the roadway. Get out of the roadway. Get out of the roadway. You can put that thing on.
What the fuck? She's falling. She's falling. What the fuck?
You're throwing her out of her chair on the sidewalk. You're throwing her out.
Let her go.
Hold the chair. Hold the chair. Hold the chair. You're throwing her out of her chair.
Hold the chair. You pushed
out
her chair.
What the fuck?
You pushed her out of chair. Who fucking raised that? That is what the police are.
Cohen, 8110. Cohen 8110. You just pushed her out of her chair.
What the fuck?
Garrett Foster.
I already see in the comments, she wiggled out of the chair. She has no arms and legs. She was falling out of the chair. She was panicking because she was falling out of the chair. She had no way to break her fall. Let me unpack before the commentariat goes ballistic on this, some of what you saw so you can understand the situation there. There are 3 civilians that are involved with the police there. There's 3 women. The first woman is pulled away by the police. She tries to come back. They push her back. That is a friend of Whitney. The other woman, the woman that is arrested, is Whitney's full-time caretaker. Whitney was continuing to debate with the police officers, and I don't want to get ahead of the interview because you should be hearing the whole story before you pass judgment. And they arrested her caretaker, the person that was not only responsible because she doesn't have arms or legs, but the person that was charged with pushing her back to safety and the person that was enabling Whitney to engage with the police officers in the first place. Do not lose sight that Whitney is at a vigil for her fiancé who was killed during a Black Lives Matter protest last summer. Have a little empathy in the comments. Jennifer, I'll let you. I've gone enough. You can.
Yeah. Did somebody really say she wiggled out of that chair? Like how?
Yes. They were in the comments. LOL. She wiggled out of the chair.
She has no lower arms, no lower legs. How did she wiggle out of that chair? Like, clearly you're a doctor, you have some knowledge of anatomy, let us know, because I have no idea how that works. I am not that kind of doctor, but still I'm smart enough to know that that is not what happened there. Also, need I remind people about interracial marriage and the way that interracial marriages have been treated. It was 1967, Loving v. Virginia, that overturned interracial marriage. That's what, 50 years ago? 50 years ago. So I don't want to
Women
hear.
couldn't own property in Texas until 1976, Jennifer.
I'm not in the mood for that tonight.
We were able to interview the individual that took that video. His name is Jonathan, and Jonathan's video is going viral tonight. And we have this video interview that we've done. I wouldn't necessarily say it's an exclusive interview, but we're one of only 2 news agencies in the country, at least as of tonight, that have spoken with Jonathan. And with that, in his own words, this is what happened. Jonathan, thank you for coming on the show.
You're welcome.
And we understand you were in Austin and you were the streamer that shot the video of Whitney getting dumped out of her wheelchair by Austin police. That video is going viral, over 350,000 views on Twitter, and retweeted by George Takei.
The world needs to see what happened on that day.
Whitney Mitchell is the widow of Garrett Foster. Theirs is a tragic story. Garrett went in and enlisted in the United States Air Force. He was given an honorable discharge just after months of joining because Whitney got a mysterious illness. She ended up with sepsis and they had to amputate her arms and legs.
Yes, he was her caretaker. And he was providing anything that she needed, any kind of necessity that she had. He protected her and kept her safe.
On the night that he died, that's what he was doing. He was protecting Whitney. He was a permanent gun carrier in the state of Texas, and an individual attempted to drive through the protest.
Daniel Perry tried to drive through the protest. Daniel Perry had made threats against protesters on Facebook and other social media platforms in advance to what he did.
Why don't you tell us in your own words what happened and the events that led up to Whitney being dumped out of the wheelchair?
The march was for Garrett Foster and Alexander Gonzalez. We went to Garrett Foster's memorial site. On the way to Garrett Foster's memorial site, somebody actually rushed into the crowd on a motorcycle and was, haggling everybody. And right after that incident happened, the police were following us. They kept saying, get out of the roadway. We would comply immediately with them and we would get out of the roadway. More and more police showed up to that specific location. Whitney was very, very upset. And the police ended up confiscating the banner with Garrett Foster's name. And once that happened, Whitney wanted to go confront them. They were asking for the banner back because the banner had, her fiance's name on it. She wanted it back.
Austin police take away the banner. Whitney and her caretaker and some others are demanding the banner back. And
Yes.
then we're getting to the point of this video. What happens next?
And when they confronted the police said, "Oh, you're not asking for this banner back nicely enough." Police ended up pushing the two people that were with Whitney out of the way back, like towards the sidewalk. And then one of them ended up getting arrested, which is Whitney's best friend and caretaker, Brian Yarger, whose badge number is 6499 of the Austin Police Department. He ended up pushing the wheelchair back towards the street. He was pushing her incredibly fast, and she was unable to stay in the wheelchair. She was screaming, she was flailing, she was scared, scared because she was trying to catch herself from falling out of the wheelchair. And I just want to say that he pushed her out of the wheelchair.
She has no hands or feet. She has no way of holding or positioning herself in that wheelchair. She is dependent upon her caregiver.
Exactly. So Whitney needed her caretaker to push her back to the street. She did not need the police interfering at all whatsoever. The police did not need to interject, but Brian Yarger, who also has a history with the Austin Police Department, he was suspended before. So he does have a history with the Austin Police Department. He came off aggressive from the beginning when we first saw him at Garrett Foster's memorial site.
And how is Whitney now?
So I've heard from a couple friends of hers that she's doing okay. She was very traumatized by the incident.
Jonathan, thank you for coming on and telling us what your experience was. How long have you been streaming?
So I've been streaming for quite a long time, and I've been all over the country, like Louisville, New York, DC.
Thank you for coming on to the show again and telling us your experience and what you witnessed. We will be monitoring this situation in Austin and see if there's anything that comes out of this. And there you go. And Jonathan didn't want to use his last name in the interview, so we respected by that. So we're just going to go by Jonathan. I saw a lot of comments. People say he's a great streamer. He gets great video. Apparently, he's traveled all over the country. I'm a little jelly. He definitely has that videographer look in the interview there. And he is at the Families, that's with an apostrophe S, the Families Soup TV on Facebook. So if you go on Facebook, the Families Soup TV, you can follow Jonathan over there. Having the witness testimony of a person that's behind the camera and seeing what's happening, Jennifer, adds some more color to what's happened in Austin.
Yeah, definitely having somebody there that witnessed and can add nuance to the video, so people have a more complete picture of what happened, is definitely important. I still am having an extremely hard time understanding how, people were or someone made the comment that she wiggled out of her chair. So I'm still a little upset about that. So I'm going to let you go back and talk a little bit more.
You probably can hear the helicopter going by pretty low here. I don't know what the low-flying helicopters is in the middle of the show. This is going to start getting paranoid here soon about this stuff. We'll continue to monitor the situation there. We're not aware if there's an open investigation going on. Jonathan did let us know that this was carried by the local affiliate in San Antonio and CBS. That story's been carried there. George Takei has tweeted it out. While we were running the interview, I went and looked. A couple of people have been sending me messages. And the Chuds.
It's a cannibalistic humanoid underground dweller.
These are Chuds. Cannibalistic humanoid underground dwellers
Have, of course, taken his IP, and they're spinning their own version of what happened in Austin. She is a Antifa agitator.
Oh, yes, of course. An Antifa plant, an agitator, whatever. Whatever stories they got to tell themselves to go to bed at night.
Hallelujah! Holy shit! Where's the Tylenol?
We'll continue to monitor the story, Jennifer. And with that, we'll do a little pause for the cause. And we'll go on to story number 3.
Okay.
Hi, Malcontents. I'm David, the Malcontent, and I'd like to talk to you for a moment about supporting independent media. When you support us, you help us bring the before, during, and after. You help us defend the First Amendment. You help us amplify BIPOC and LGBTQIA voices, and you help us hold leaderships at a local, state, and federal level accountable. None of this would be possible without support by viewers just like you. When you become a patron for as little as $5 a month, you help buy technology, safety equipment, and help cover travel expenses so that we can continue to bring you news that you trust. If you can't become a patron, you can do a one-time donation on Venmo, and your dollars will go to the exact same causes. With your continued support, we can continue to amplify BIPOC and LGBTQIA voices while showing the truth on what is happening in the world around us. Once again, thank you. And we love our patrons, and thank you so much for your continued support. Because of our patrons, we can bring you stories like we brought for Jonathan. We can bring you stories like we have for next week. And Jennifer, we got a full calendar for in-house content next week. It's very exciting.
Yeah, I'm really excited about the stuff we have upcoming. Yeah. That's a lot of what I was working on this afternoon. So,
yes, we're going to have a busy night. Jennifer and I have a busy night tomorrow night.
Yes.
And with that, we're going to go ahead into our next story. And our next story is a local story, and it's a short story, but it's an important one that we need to bring to you. As of April 15th, anybody in the state of Washington over the age of 16 will be eligible to get a COVID vaccination. COVID vaccinations have proven to be effective. They are not 100% effective. There really is no vaccine that is truly 100% effective. If you do some research in science, they are far more effective than flu vaccines, which typically are anywhere from 40 to 60% effective. We have 14 counties right now in the state of Washington that are in danger of going backwards, going back to phase 2. Let's face it, nobody wants to go back to phase 2. You can't tell me anybody in the state wants to go back to phase 2. I know I'm exhausted. I know I want normal. And I'm holding out so that we can get a lot closer to normal. So when you become eligible, please go out and get vaccinated, because you're just going to help us get back to normal. And that's really all I got to say about that. And if you need help in finding the shots, you can go up to malcontentnews.com, do a search for COVID, and you can find, there's an amazing group, findacovidshot.org, and they will help you make your appointment to get in line virtually to get your COVID shot. There's another story we have up on our website at malcontentnews.com about how the Stop the Steal folks have moved on from Stop the Steal. You don't hear about Stop the Steal anymore. And they're actively trying to block people from getting COVID shots. And unfortunately, in the way that our appointment systems are set up in the state of Washington, their particular tactics could be a little more effective here. So have patience, don't give up, get vaccinated. And that's my public service story for the night. Jennifer, we don't have a queue up for the trial, Chauvin trial update, but I know that you have pulled the notes together for that. And I'm going to turn things over to you.
Yeah, so today was day 4 of the Derek Chauvin trial. And so his girlfriend, Courtney, of about 3 years, she testified today and talked a little bit about the shared opioid addiction they had. That wasn't, something that was developed, like they were out buying it on the street or taking it recreationally. They were both prescribed opioids for conditions they had, and developed an addiction from that. Like many people that develop opioid addictions, it's an epidemic. They also had two of the paramedics that treated George Floyd. One testified that there was a mix-up with the calls, and initially it was like declared a non-emergency response. And then when they arrived there, the other testified that he believed Floyd to already be dead, and that he flatlined on the way to the hospital, and they were basically doing everything they could to resuscitate him with no luck. There was also some audio released of Chauvin basically saying, this is one person's opinion. We can, I had to do what I basically had to do what I had to do because this was a big guy and we needed to subdue him. And I feel like he was on something. There were, I believe, another witness that was there who broke down in tears, an older gentleman who broke down in tears, who was one of the people that actually tried to intervene and stop Derek Chauvin from, keeping his knee on George Floyd's neck. So there's a lot going on in this trial. I think so far there have been about 17 witnesses, and the prosecution seems to be, of course, building a very strong case. There was also a retired police officer that testified that, used force, but basically he used more force than you really should have. And not so many words. So there's a lot going on in this trial. And what looks like a cut and dry, guilty case or guilty verdict, or what should be a guilty verdict for Derek Chauvin, we know is probably not as cut and dry as we think, because that is what we have seen historically. But it's a really, really sad state of affairs. They also had the cashier that Floyd gave the counterfeit $20 bill to when he was trying to purchase a pack of cigarettes, who basically said that, he offered to pay for the cigarettes and that he wished that he'd never taken the bill. So he's experiencing a lot of guilt over this as well. A lot of the witnesses have broken down in tears. It's been a very sad state of affairs. The family has been there. It's been a really traumatic experience for a lot of people that witnessed this to have to relive this experience. And so, and a lot of people are saying if he isn't convicted, America's going to riot, and they will, and they should.
The thing that's jumped out at me in the pieces that I've been able to catch in reading the summaries and the video clips, and I'm very cautious when I just see video clips, Jennifer, because the mainstream, this is a disadvantage the mainstream media has. They're showing the thing continuously. I can't digest it continuously. So they're just going to show the stuff that's going to get the most clicks. I mean, I get it. I know that's how the game's played. I totally get it. So I'm cautious on the clips. But what's jumping out at me is the defense just doesn't seem to have much of a case on this.
No.
It feels like the defense is almost phoning it in.
Yeah, well, the defense was he was a drug addict. But I was also reading before the show when I was trying to pull all this together that the jury's not going to hear about Chauvin's other uses of excessive force. There's 6 other uses of excessive force, and they're not going to hear about those. But here's my question. You can't tell me this isn't about race. When I was younger, I had an opioid addiction that developed the same way. I worked with racehorses. I injured my back. I took Vicodin. I became dependent on it. I was buying it elsewhere. And if I was that person that went in with that $20 counterfeit bill, do you think this would have been the results? Because I'm a white woman. Let's be real. I'd be a victim. I wouldn't be, or this would have never happened, or I would be the victim. I wouldn't be the person being accused of, she was a drug addict. She did these terrible things. I would be this poor white woman who was accosted by police, who had this sad addiction. Let's be real.
Vicodin scares me to death. I mean, not to sidebar too far on that. I had an injury. I shattered my collarbone, dislocated my shoulder. They gave me Vicodin. I took them for about a day, and then I was like, I'm not taking these things anymore. Like, no freaking way.
I haven't touched any in probably 17 or 18 years. The last time I did, it had been a really long time since I'd taken any, and I had something, I think I had a wisdom tooth extracted. And I was itching so bad that I'd only taken half of one. And I have not taken them even through medical necessity. I will take some Tylenol. I will do whatever, but I won't touch it again.
I've said this before, and I've said this on other cases. I'm going to say this on this case. We have this document here in the United States. It's called the Constitution. Within the Constitution, there is the Bill of Rights, the first 10 amendments. There's 27 amendments total. I like to do a wink and a grin and go, technically there's 25 because you have prohibition, the repeal of prohibition. So I like to wink and grin. There's 27. Anyway, neither here nor there. The Bill of Rights makes some things really clear. One of the big things it makes clear, that the police are not judge, jury, and executioner on the side of the road. We have this thing in the United States. It is called due process. And when a person is accused of a crime, such as trying to pass off a $20 counterfeit bill to buy some cigarettes, due process means that there should be a trial for that. And nowhere in any state or federal law, because the Constitution and the Bill of Rights provides protection against cruel and unusual punishment, the death penalty for trying to pass off a $20 bill falls under cruel and unusual punishment. The fact that George Floyd was a drug addict or had a drug problem or had drugs in his bloodstream is inconsequential to this case, which is the central thing that the prosecutors are arguing. What killed George Floyd was not the drugs in his system. What killed George Floyd was a knee on his neck for 9 minutes and 29 seconds, not the 8 minutes and 46 seconds we thought, Jennifer. And of those 9 minutes and 29 seconds, 53 seconds he was convulsing. When I heard that, it just became beyond repugnant for me.
Yeah, but again, here's the thing: we talk about the Bill of Rights and we talk about the Constitution, but those things were designed to protect people that look like us, David, not people of color. I mean, that's just the reality, and it's unfortunate that people still, even after the constitutional amendments that came after the Civil War. I mean, we can talk about the abolition of slavery and Honest Abe and all of that shit. But slavery was never actually abolished. I mean, they implemented the black codes. They had convict leasing programs, Jim Crow, all of these things. Slavery was never fucking abolished. We can sugarcoat it. We can give it lip service all we want. But the fact of the matter remains, white people, the system, systemic racism has done everything in its power to keep Black people and people of color more broadly, Indigenous people, Latinx people, oppressed because they need to stay in power. And I'm sure somebody out there is going to choose to know what she's talking about. I'm a historian. I have fields in race, slavery, and U.S. empire, American Indian and Indigenous history, Latin America, and post-human studies. I have degrees in history and the comparative history of ideas. So yeah, I know what the hell I'm talking about.
Mic drop. We need like a mic drop button for you. Mic drop. Very well said, Jennifer. It really is. It's tough for me in my role to speculate. I will just be beyond. This is what I'll say. I will be beyond stunned if there is not a conviction on one of the three crimes that he is being charged with. On the other side of the coin, and Jennifer, to your point, it just takes one juror.
Yeah, just one. Just one person that's like, he was a drug addict. And they say that opioids depress respiration. So that probably factored into it. If he hadn't been doing drugs, then this wouldn't have happened. There's going to be a person that has that logic because that's going to be part of the defense's case.
Well, and we've seen that logic demonstrated in our comments on, she wriggled out of the chair on purpose with no arms and no legs.
Okay.
All right.
I'm breathing.
And with that, what?
What's going on, David?
What? What are you doing in here? No,
Malcontent News is for America. Made for Americans, by Americans. We capture the American spirit. No fake news here. If you don't have a hunting license and a pack of Marlboros, a pickup truck, and a no trespassing sign outside your castle, we might be just too much for you. We're Chip, a manly man who does manly things. Like posting hateful comments at 2 a.m. on Facebook after a 4-hour session of Call of Duty, while telling people, I'm not racist, I have a black friend. We're Karen. We know exactly where we belong when we're not in the kitchen, inside of a Starbucks complaining loudly about the holiday cups and how Christmas has been canceled. We're little Susie. She goes to church every Sunday to learn to repress her desires and feelings because they're full of sin. She learns to fear God, love Trump, and hate science. That's Malcontent News. That's what we stand for. Our team of propaganda experts will tell you exactly who to fear, why to fear them, and how to hate them. And now it's time for those Trump-worshiping disciples that you know and love. David and Jennifer, woman, damn liberals, taking everything over. Anyway, it's time for Malcontent News. And if you're wondering, April Fools to you.
Hey there, partners. My name's here, Tex Goldstein, Jewish American cowboy. Howdy. And it's time for us to do some malcontented minutes. Go ahead and spam those hearts. Spam those hearts. Let those mods and admins know that you love what they're doing, that you love them. Well, you love them. Yeah, love them. Hey there, little missy. How you doing?
Well, thank you for letting me out of the kitchen this evening, David. I really appreciate it.
Now, don't you get too riled up there now, because you just go back and make me another pot pie.
Do you see the cool, like, pro-America cowboy shirt I found? This one especially, he's really popular with the Christians right now.
Very popular.
Yeah.
I don't think so. I think they're unhappy. They're always unhappy. We're always unhappy. Because we are oppressed. We're oppressed peoples.
That's right.
All right, let me explain to you how these malcontentment minute things are going to go. We lock malcontent up in the closet. I'm his southern evil twin. What we're going to be doing here, we got 10 stories. We're going to be running them down for you. Dropping some information. I get like a minute, and then I let her talk for a minute. I'm going to let it happen just this once. And then she's going to get to talk, and then I get to talk, because like the therapist said, that's what we're supposed to do. Damn liberal. Country's going to hell in a handbasket. Are we ready to do this? Oh, wait a minute, there's a poll.
Oh, yeah.
Mods and admins, go ahead and drop that damn poll in there. And then them bar comments right over there. No, they're over there. Comments are over there. Drop them there in the them bar comments. We'll go ahead then, and you can tell us what story we want to talk about some more. I guess I go first, Jennifer, and I'm actually going to let the malcontent do this one here first, all right? So with that, we're going to get the clock going. All right, then let me out of the closet here for a minute on this one here. And then I think Tex is going to come back, because this is a serious story, and I want to give it the decorum that it deserves. And with that, we'll go ahead and start the clock. And we're going to go ahead and get the story one. Puget Sound, we need your help. Watch this clip.
And the still image released by police comes from the video. This picture is all we can legally show you on TV right now. Tonight, our AJ Janival shows us what community leaders hope to see change as crimes against Asian Americans skyrocket.
Oh my goodness.
A video so shocking, it's causing these reactions from people who live in Tacoma. What the video shows is the person in red on the right running up to two people who are walking along the sidewalk. The person in red then starts punching an Asian man. The video cuts to a few seconds later. Someone is now holding the camera, running up to that victim, who now seems to be bleeding from his nose. The person holding the camera begins to taunt and curse at the victim.
Watch that video. It causes a lot of concern.
A concern felt, especially from members of the Asian American and Pacific Islander community here in Tacoma.
I'm just going to say this. Somebody knows something in Tacoma. The victims are Korean and they have not come forward. It is believed they do not speak English. If you know people in the Korean community, Tacoma police are desperately looking for the victims because they have no crime unless the victims come forward. Jennifer, you get 40 seconds, and then I think they're putting me back into the closet.
Whew. Do I need to go on again about the nation's long history, especially West Coast and sentiment? It's a broad term. Chinese, Korean, Japanese. For some reason, white people use it to encompass all these unique cultures. Regardless, Tacoma in 1885 had an anti-Chinese riot, a very big anti-Chinese riot for I think in the 1990s, they finally, or the early 2000s, finally put up a monument for, to not commemorate, but to remember it, and remind people of the dark past of Tacoma in the context of Asian people. So why are we doing this again? Why is this happening again? Why is history continuing to repeat itself? We've already seen how this plays out. It's the systemic racism. It's the white supremacy. That shit needs to be dismantled. That's all I've got to say.
You get story number 2.
Oh, speaking of white privilege and white supremacy, there is Fox News and TPUSA, not toilet paper, Turning Point USA, although it's kind of the same thing, are up in arms because Loyola Prep in Chicago was asking students to talk about white privilege and how they've experienced white privilege, and to really dig deep and, talk about the ways in which they benefited from that. This, of course, upset a lot of parents. And then, witnesses in the class, students were a lot of people got defensive and the parents were upset because it made their white children uncomfortable. And something another teacher actually did this kind of math question that incorporated different ethnicities and asked students to kind of graph them out, ranked on pity, empathy, and a couple of other things. And of course, white people again were super uncomfortable with that and got very defensive, and parents complained because they don't want their little children to have to talk about white privilege or acknowledge that they have it. And Turning Point USA is losing their shit.
I love it when Turning Point USA loses their shit, because Turning Point USA funded the insurrection against Washington, D.C. It sent 81 busloads of people to attempt to overthrow the government. One of our favorite, Katie Davis Court, apparently came back with a concussion. Inquiring minds so want to know on that one. With that said, if you were going to Loyola in Chicago, you were benefiting from privilege. End of story. And if you are if you as a parent are how dare you call out my privilege and try to make my little youngin' understand that they have been growing up in a little bubble and they go to this very special school, yeah, you're special kind of awful on that. Jennifer, and with that, I'm going to go ahead and jump into story number 3. Story number 3, I took off the hat for this one because this is a really good, feel-good news story. And there we go. I got story number 3 right across my face. I want to give you all an update on Bobby Lito. Bobby Lito was one of the first interviews that we did. And in the show opening, not the April Fool's show opening we did, the real show opening, we show Bobby's mother actually in that's in our clip. It was a very important moment for us in becoming a show. Yesterday evening, we received a message from Bobby Lito's mother. Bobby is going to be allowed to play. And not only is Bobby going to be allowed to play, Bobby is a transgender teen. They are male. And they wanted to just play soccer. And they are going to be not only allowed to play soccer in the Puget Sound Premier League, but anybody else who identifies as transgender will be able to play soccer in the Puget Sound Premier League. Jennifer, my heart was so happy with this because it's like we helped make the world a little bit of a better place. And Bobby's mother was just a tireless advocate for her child. They're an amazing family, and I just love this story. You get 45 seconds.
Yeah, that's, absolutely, that's wonderful news. And I am super excited to hear that, and super excited for Bobby, because that's got to be an amazing feeling. And I get really tired of people trying to use the argument about trans athletes in sports, especially at the college level, as a way in which to guise their transphobia, because it's really nefarious and gross and just, whatever. So this is a really feel-good story, and I look forward to seeing how they do.
All right. And with that, I think we can go to story number 4. I'll reset the timer.
Okay. So here we go to Frederick, Oklahoma, where a mother is really upset with the school because apparently they were having a political discussion in her 12-year-old's class when some of her classmates used transphobic, homophobic language, and then the teacher called homosexuality a sin. So the child actually identifies as pansexual. Again, she's a 12-year-old girl. The mother was livid when she found out what happened. There are, numerous witnesses. The teacher has since apologized. And apparently, as you would expect, small town Oklahoma schools often engage in bring religion into discussions in the classroom. And this is one of those times where the teacher was caught and called out. It's hard to tell what's going to happen. The school says it takes this very seriously. But again, there's a lot of students in the classroom who expressed concern too that weren't actually engaging in this conversation and in the slurs that were being said in the classroom. They were like, we have family and friends that are in the LGBTQ plus community. And this is extremely, hurtful to us as well. So we'll have to follow up and see what happens with that. But kind of a gross story coming out of Oklahoma.
Yeah, it's one of these stories, Jennifer. I did get a chance to read this. Jennifer and I sincerely were in a mad scramble up for this show. We're really coming in blind on both of our sets of stories. But I did read this one because I was like, gross, when I saw the headline. A number of people on the right, I'm trying to word this carefully, act like professional victims. Oh, we're being censored. Oh, we're doing... But it just feels like all of this projection, and to project your religious doctrine in a public school on sexuality, on children that are figuring out their sexuality, is reprehensible. And that's all I'm going to say to that, to keep the crazy train moving. And on the subject of crazy train, let's go to story number 5. And story number 5 takes us to Florida and Matt Gaetz. Yes, that Matt Gaetz, Congressman Matt Gaetz. We have a video on our TikTok. Want me to see if I get this button right? I got the button wrong. That's their Twitch. Gosh darn it, I hit the other button. Whoa. All right, we have a video on our TikTok about this, but I'm going to summarize it. Matt Gaetz is connected with a guy called Joel Greenberg. Joel Greenberg is right now sitting in federal custody, accused with child sex trafficking and stalking people. He was also then had 21 additional charges added yesterday. Matt Gaetz, we learned, was looking for high-powered criminal lawyers weeks ago, according to ABC News. And then it was announced in the New York Times that Matt Gaetz is under investigation for child sex trafficking involving a 17-year-old. There was a bizarre's not the right word. Awkward is the right word. Interview with Tucker Carlson because Matt Gaetz went running to Fox News to tell his story. And in telling his story, Matt kind of implies his buddy Tucker is involved in this child sex trafficking thing. Tucker basically ends the interview and then comes back on and calls it one of the most bizarre interviews he's ever done. You know, when you're a Republican as far up the ladder as Matt Gaetz and Tucker Carlson is going, you're boned. Jennifer, you got 30 seconds.
Oh, yeah. Tucker was totally trying to throw him under the bus. Like, I don't remember what night you're talking about. I don't remember that event. And nothing really surprises me about Matt Gaetz because he's always been pretty gross. So this is not surprising to me. It's absolutely disgusting if this is what he did and he was engaging in sex with an underage 17-year-old girl. I do believe at one point he actually called her a 17-year-old woman. A 17-year-old is not a woman. A 17-year-old is a child still, both in the eyes of the law and I'm sure to her family. So yeah, this is absolutely disgusting. And I'd like to say that I hope it's not true, but he's skeezy he's sketchy. So
there are a couple of news report. I'm not. If you want us to unpack this one, you got to vote for it because there's like so much to this onion and I'm going to stop. Jennifer, you go to story number 6.
So yeah, we have some good news coming from the Department of the Interior, which overturned a Trump administration decision about the Missouri riverbed that was in the Fort Berthold Indian Reservation, which is in North Dakota and belongs to the Mandan, Hidatsa, and Arikara, and which was actually upheld through 1825 and 1851 treaties, and in 1979 and in 2017. So they're really happy that they're getting the section of the riverbed within the reservation back because that was something that was promised to them and the Trump administration had taken away from them. And so this is actually a big victory for them. And I'm sure, all those guys on the right that didn't want to vote for Deb Haaland because Interior and she's just a Native woman and what would she know about doing good things for Native people? This is actually a really good thing. And I'm always happy when decisions like this are overturned, sovereignty is recognized, and Native peoples get access to land, ownership of land that belongs to them.
This is a story. I'm glad you did this one because I wasn't aware of this decision, Jennifer. And living in South Dakota, spending on time in the Pine Ridge Indian Reservation and the proximity of the Missouri River to South Dakota and where it cuts through in that area. This was a thing when this happened, when the Trump administration made this decision. I was just like,
"You're not the same. I'm an American. You're a sick asshole."
And so I was really, really thrilled when I saw that this was reversed. We covered everything that happened in the Wounded Knee standoff and what has gone on with all of the Plains tribes. I say that very broadly because there are so many tribes in that region of the country. I would really struggle to list off the 25 or 30 tribes that are impacted by this decision. And I'm just thrilled. Absolutely thrilled this was the right thing to do.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a recognition of sovereignty. And, it just gives them land back that's important to them, that was promised to them. And it's a good thing.
All right, we're going to go to story number 7.
Lil Nas X has collaborated with a...
Look at that face there for story number 7. According to store staff, Sisu the pit bull made 5 different attempts to take his favorite cuddle buddy, this unicorn, from a Dollar General. The store called Animal Control and said they had a stray dog in the parking lot that kept coming into the store. He would walk in, go to that very specific unicorn and try to get it. Maybe he had a stuffed animal like that at home. We just don't know. That's what Animal Control had to say. But he wanted that purple unicorn bad. The persistent pooch was eventually collared But rather than going to the Hoosgow, he found himself at a local animal shelter. He was booked in as a stray. Samantha Lane, the animal control officer that brought him in, thought it was in everyone's best interest if he left with the unicorn and paid $10 of her own money to take the cuddle buddy. Here is the good news. Sisu may be a stray, but he already has a home and a foster waiting for him if his owners do not come forward and claim him. And Dollar General donated a bunch of stuffed animals for the other dogs in the shelter.
Oh, that's the sweetest story. I mean, he had to have some kind of like a connection to that reminded him of something. Dogs are so smart. I felt bad because I got a notification that was my pug's birthday today. And I was like, oh my God, I'm like the worst dog mother ever because I didn't get my pug anything for his birthday. So I had to run out and get him all the stuff for his birthday. And I'm like, happy birthday, buddy. And he's like, what the hell are you talking about? But dogs are really, really smart. And that's a great story. I actually got both of my dogs from shelters, and I encourage other people to do the same. So yeah, this is a great story. I'm glad he found a home, and I'm glad he got to have that unicorn.
Yoda was a rescue. I got him as a senior pug as a rescue, and I was lucky to have him for 9 years. And with Jennifer, with that, you can go to story number 8.
David, I have some bad news.
Okay.
Do you remember, like, what we thought was a conspiracy theory about Hillary Clinton and the child trafficking and, all that stuff? Well, according to QAnon, it's real because that's what happened with the blockage of the Suez Canal. It was Hillary's fault, and they were trafficking children. So, I mean, I really think we need to take this more seriously. And let me talk to your cousin about this, or your evil twin, or whoever it is, because I think he would have some deeper insight about this. But apparently, according to tweets by QAnon, whatever they are, Evergreen was Hillary's Secret Service name. The Clinton Foundation was the head of the snake with the hate of human trafficking, and they often brought victims through ports on these containers that you are seeing on this ship. So this was all orchestrated by the Clinton Foundation as they were trafficking children and blocked the Suez Canal.
I'll tell you right now that this was not the Clinton Foundation. I'm going to let you in a little secret, little missy.
Okay.
The lizard people are real, and they run the country. There's this amazing video on YouTube. You need to watch it. It's 4 hours and 37 minutes long. It explains everything to you. Change your mind. Change your worldview of everything. Lizard people control the country. The documentary, it was done back in the 80s. It's been lost. It's been forgotten. They came in spaceships, Jennifer, and they look just like us. But if you peel their skin off, they're actually lizards under there. And they're here to eat us. They're here to feed off of us and take all our damn water. One of them's named Diana. You should watch it. Change your life.
David's evil brother, I think that was actually a TV show called V. It was on when I was a kid. But it was just a TV show. It wasn't real.
No, it's real. It's a documentary, and the events happen in real time. We're controlled by lizard people. All right. Okay. I'm going to go on to story number 9. I'm going to do this one as evil twin April Fools, Malcontent. Story number 9. Richard L. Harris of Hollywood, Florida, has been charged with assaulting, resisting, or impeding certain officers' obstruction of an official proceeding, entering or remaining in a restricted building, disorderly and disruptive conduct in a restricted building, and disorderly conduct in a Capitol building, the Department of Justice said. I think he was also in trouble for square dance calling. According to his indictment, Harris unlawfully and unknowingly, not unknowingly, entered a restricted building in an attempt to corruptly obstruct, influence, and impede in official proceedings of the U.S. Congress. Turns out that my good buddy here, he was in Pelosi's office, took some pictures with Gerald Ford, streamed himself talking to police officers, saying there are 1 million people outside and they're just going to crush them like bugs. And it also turns out, I'll neither confirm nor deny, that he was here in Oregon on December 21st and was rioting down there in Salem. Oregon police want to talk there to my good buddy. He was just arrested yesterday. Jennifer, you get 60 seconds to unpack that because I'm going to let it happen. Oh, good Lord, the devil's on the TV.
I'm sorry, I'm preparing for my last story. Are you sure he's not an Antifa plant? I mean, because isn't that what you guys would normally go with? It's like
I've been to his house, and he's got a Confederate flag in the garage. There are no 3 arrows pointing down in the garage in his house.
Oh, okay. Okay.
I'm telling you, you need to watch that documentary because those events happened in real time back in the 80s. We're run by lizard people.
Okay, so it was Antifa, but then it wasn't Antifa, and you guys want to take credit now for the insurrection when you didn't before because you tried to pawn it off on Antifa.
Hey, you just wait because Donald Trump actually still has nuclear codes. He never gave them back. He real the president. You read that shit on the internet.
Oh, okay, David's evil twin. Can you please bring back David now? I'm kind of tired of you.
You want story number 10?
Yes.
Fine, there you go.
All right, so Lil Nas X, this cowboy right here, is in a lot of hot water this week with the right and Christians and homophobes, transphobes, racists, pretty much all of that entire group because he put out a song and a video called "Call Me by Your Name," wherein he slides down a badass stripper pole into hell in thigh-high boots and studded shorts, lap dances Satan, and at the end, breaks Satan's neck, puts on the horns, and takes over hell. Beautiful statement, great song. Check it out. If that's what hell is like, count me in, Lil Nas X. At any rate, he also got in trouble, has been lambasted all over social media by Candace Owens, even Kristi Noem, who was the mayor of South Dakota, or governor of South Dakota. But he had some pretty amazing clapbacks, but he also had these Satan shoes that he was selling that had a drop of human blood in them. Nike has since intervened, and I know we have a clip, so David, would you play it?
We're gonna play that clip for you. I'll explain why I'm singing when I come back.
Lil Nas X has collaborated with a Brooklyn-based streetwear company and released limited edition Satan shoes. According to the company, the shoes have 60 cc of ink and 1 drop of blood as the color. Cue the outrage. But Lil Nas X had a reply ready to go. He posted a follow-up video on YouTube titled, "Lil Nas X apologizes for Satan shoe," which was actually a video of him dancing provocatively with Satan. And his hardcore clapbacks didn't end there. After South Dakota Governor Kristi Noem went off on Twitter about the footwear, the music star responded, "You are a whole governor, and you on here tweeting about some damn shoes. Do your job."
Yep. Yeah. Been on fire with the clapbacks. There's some really great ones with Caitlin Bennett, the Kent State woman or girl, whatever she is, where she was thinking she was all funny on Twitter and thought she could block him. And they had a couple pretty interesting exchanges. Candace Owens, I don't know why anybody even gives her a platform to speak. She's terrible. She was talking about how Lil Nas X and Cardi B were basically dragging Black people down. But my favorite was when one person said that, tweeted at him, "Lil Nas X, you wouldn't last 30 seconds on a debate stage with Candace Owens." And he got back and said, "You wouldn't last 30 seconds in bed with your own wife." So I was like, oh, okay. Respect.
So, I've been asked to sing in a cowboy voice in a Twitch challenge. If you're not on Twitch, you don't know what the Twitch challenge is. But now you know. And I have to sing anything I say for the next 5 minutes, and we've got about 3 minutes to go. You were talking about that little filly who was poking at Little Nas, and didn't she get a bad case of poopy pants?
She did. at a party. There's also rumors that they're unsubstantiated that I know of so far, or at least unconfirmed, that the man she married actually at one point went through conversion therapy.
I don't even know where to go with that.
He has been recently busted, though, jumping into other women's DMs with the "Hey, beautiful," which just goes to show that even when Christians and those on the right, those men try to be like smooth, they're still boring at it. Because really, at any rate, yeah. So it's a great song. If you haven't heard it, the video is amazing. Probably watched it 100 times. I'm convinced that they're just angry because they do not look that good in thigh-high boots and the studded shorts as he does, because it's amazing.
I was drunk the day that little Niles went to hell. The whole story's almost got a little bit of a South Park element to it.
You think so?
I could see South Park doing this.
Yeah. One of the big arguments has been that, it's corrupting the children. And people are like, we lived through South Park as children with Saddam Hussein having an affair with Satan. Your children will survive this. And basically, why are you letting your children watch it anyway? It's intended for adult consumption, not for your children to watch. It's not
when the sun goes down in Christy Noem's town and the whole world turns meth.
Yes. Yes.
Oh my goodness, I've got to go a whole nother minute. All right, while we're waiting, I'm going to tell you right now, my fans, my country fans, you need to go and vote on the poll. I done see the mods and admins have already dropped the poll. They dropped the poll, they dropped the poll. They dropped it like my mama got dropped off into prison. You only got about another minute. Foreman's coming. I'm going to fire me from my job. And then I'm going to get drunk. And then I'm going to blame other people for all my problems. Can I get an amen? I didn't get Jesus in those lyrics. Or a pickup truck.
Or your wife leaving you. Got to get a divorce in there.
Oh, after the foreman fire me, I'm going to get a divorce from my wife and she's going to get the pickup truck and the dog. Yes. And then I'm going to have to find my Jesus and I don't have to sing no more. All right. I know that was worth a lot of bits on Twitch, and I don't get bits, but I know bits are a good thing. I know that much. With the Garth Brooks, I haven't heard that I look like Garth Brooks in a really long friggin' time. Okay. With that said, and I used to actually get told I look like Garth Brooks very seriously when I lived in Texas. What's the winning story? We need to know what the winning story is to unpack. I know the one I'm hoping for, like this.
Drum roll.
We're waiting for that winning story. It's so funny. People are going, that was a good thing. Some people are saying not a good thing. Wait, was that Chris Gaines?
Oh my God, did somebody call you Chris Gaines?
Yes.
Wow. That's harsh. I'm sorry.
I totally remember the Family Guy thing about the Chris Gaines that was punishment.
Yes.
I'm going to make you listen to 4 tracks of this Chris Gaines CD. 6 tracks. 8 tracks.
What is that? Like, why?
I was living in Texas when he did it. Everybody there was like, what? What is this?
I didn't even understand it. Like, why not just be Garth Brooks and sing that, the whole alter ego thing was...
Matt Gaetz is the winner! Matt Gaetz is the winner! Oh, my night is made! This story's so delicious. So, Jennifer, we can unpack it some more because I caught myself and stopped. what was in the news is that some people in Congress are coming forward and saying, just to make Matt Gaetz a little more just like, I mean, he looks like Butthead to me so much.
He does.
Beavis and Butthead.
Totally.
It's like he is the embodiment of Butthead. And apparently he's been going around in taxpayers' time with his cell phone going, hey, check out these pictures of naked women that I have on his cell phone, to his coworkers in Congress, to the point that his coworkers in Congress are now going to the press and telling people that he did this.
That is so gross. That is such, like, we talk about toxic masculinity and, misogyny and these horrible ways in which men like him, particularly white men of a particular class and status, like to continue to objectify, dehumanize, and oppress women. And here we have a man that is basically running around showing coworkers pictures of naked women who I'm sure did not consent to have their naked photos shown to other people, and is accused of sexual misconduct or engaging in a sexual relationship, which is the same as statutory rape, with a 17-year-old child.
So he has this bizarro story that he went on Tucker Carlson with, that he was approached to get $25 million from his father, who was apparently the heir to the Swanson TV dinner frozen food fortune, and to get the $25 million to release a hostage that has been held in Iran for like 12 years. And if the dad will channel through back channels through like the Department of Justice and the CIA and some other bizarro, like, holy shit, to Iran, they will get the credit for facilitating the release, and he will get a full pardon for his looming sex crimes. Full stop. Let's say his defense is true, Jennifer. Let's say it's all true. That the Department of Justice and the military, in cooperation with the CIA, are out to extort him. And because the other thing he says is, and the Department of Justice is investigating this, and I am cooperating with the Department of Justice in the investigation. Didn't he just blow the whistle on an investigation? Didn't he just destroy the investigation if the story is true?
Matt Gaetz sounds like he's, aside from like, a rapist, also a narcissist and a sociopath. So, yeah, like, that's insane. And shit is insane when Tucker Carlson throws your ass under the bus.
Yep. And Tucker Carlson not only threw his ass under the bus, he backed up. He rolled over him a second time. He put it back and forward. He rolled over him a third time going forward really slowly, right? It's just, if Tucker Carlson threw him under the bus, there's nobody at Fox that's going to talk to him.
Yeah. So the thing is, like, you have this weird interview with Tucker. You have him, this crazy story that he has concocted to try and excuse himself of this gross behavior. You have coworkers saying, hey, he just shows us naked pictures of random women. I don't understand. With these kind of looming accusations over his head, why the fuck does he still have a job?
Well, because the Republican Party wants to wait and see. We want to see how this plays out.
Child? If he raped a child.
They want to see if he actually raped a child first. That's their argument. We want to see if he actually raped the child or not. This is the party of Save the Children. I mean, Marjorie Taylor Greene, the QAnon princess, was like, I stand with Matt Gaetz. Of course you do.
Of course you do, you heinous cow. Like, seriously. This is like, I don't know, the Law and Order party is totally fine with, people that'll grab him by the, I'm not going to say it, David, I'll be good, and child rapists. Yeah, that's real law and orderly of you, but you're totally on board for, the excessive use of force against Black people, penalizing protesters, blaming everything on Antifa. But child rape, we're cool.
Hallelujah! Holy shit! Where's the Tylenol?
I don't get it. What I don't get is how irrational. I mean, obviously you're not a rational human being, right? It's just, well, it's just not true. It's like you have to be really far down the rabbit hole, because I'll close on this thought. In the prior 24 hours, Matt Gaetz ran a textbook example of how not to manage a public relations crisis. He did. The only thing that he could have done further wrong was basically jumped up and down and screamed, "I did it and I'm proud of it." That's all he had left.
Well, basically by showing coworkers pictures of naked women, he basically did, you know?
The whole Tucker thing, right? You were there with your wife and we had dinner. You remember this, you know, and Tucker looks like he's blinking SOS into the camera at that point. And I could just imagine his earpiece is just, you know, blowing up, you know, like, is that true? And I'm sure they probably got like a little signal or something with the producer, you know, kind of like, go to commercial. We're going to go to commercial. We're going to say, thank you very much. We're going to go to commercial. And then, you know, throws them under the bus when they come back. And I mean, Tucker Carlson's just a special kind of gross as it is. And here we are almost defending Tucker Carlson right now. So that just tells you how gross Matt Gaetz is.
Yeah, that whole toxic masculinity, gross, blah, like just encompassed in one cartoonish looking human. Is he a human? Is he a lizard person? Do we know?
What's that?
Is Matt Gaetz a lizard person? Do we know?
We don't know.
Because
he's a quality individual.
He looks a little rubbery, like maybe that skin is fake.
He looks like Butthead. He does everything. The narrow little eyes that kind of go to and the size of his nose and the huge forehead and the hair. I mean, he's the embodiment of Butthead. It is stunning to me.
I can't unsee that now, David. Thank you. I can't.
It can't be unseen. It's like the story we had about the dude that stopped the convoy that looked just like Saddam Hussein. There's no unseeing that either.
There's not. Yeah.
That's the other conspiracy. Saddam Hussein is alive and well and living in Arizona apparently, but he was arrested in Texas.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because he was out to save the children and against vaccines.
Yeah. No, he's saving the children from kidnapping. I don't know.
I don't know either. We're closing on a weird note. And with that, Jennifer, I think we're going to go ahead and close the show. We will play the April Fool's. We'll send out on the April Fool's send out. If you haven't tossed a little bit of Venmo or you haven't tossed us a patron, please consider becoming a patron or toss a little Venmo. It helps us keep the lights on around here. We wanted to have a little fun where it's April Fool's, but we also wanted to have decorum because of the degree of the stories that we had, particularly at the top. We originally were actually going to open with that April Fool's one, and it just didn't feel right after we did that interview with Jonathan, which is why we pulled it to the end for Malcontented Minutes. Jennifer, I will see you technically tomorrow in a virtual setting, and then on Monday... we're going to be in a mad scramble on Monday because we're recording an interview at 6:00.
Yeah. So make sure that you come back and watch us next week because we got some exciting stuff coming up.
We have a ton of exciting interviews next week. We are also going to 3 shows a week next week. We have 2 candidates for mayor next week. And we have a woman that'll be a doctor talking about reproductive health for women. And then the week after that, we're going to have Nikita Oliver on the show. We got big things happening. And so with that, April Fools to you, and we will see you on Monday.
Watch Little Nas X.
Malcontent News is for America. It's made for Americans by Americans. We capture the American spirit. No fake news here. If you don't have a hunting license and a pack of Marlboros, a pickup truck, and a no trespassing sign outside your castle, we might be just too much for you. We're Chip, a manly man who does manly things. Like posting hateful comments at 2 a.m. on Facebook after a 4-hour session of Call of Duty while telling people, I'm not racist, I have a black friend. We're Karen. We know exactly where we belong when we're not in the kitchen, inside of a Starbucks complaining loudly about the holiday cups and how Christmas has been canceled. We're little Susie. She goes to church every Sunday to learn to repress her desires and feelings because they're full of sin. She learns to fear God, love Trump, and hate science. That's Malcontent News. That's what we stand for. Our team of propaganda experts will tell you exactly who to fear, why to fear them, and how to hate them. And now it's time for those Trump-worshiping disciples that you know and love. David and Jennifer, a woman. Damn liberals, taking everything over. Anyway, it's time for Malcontent News. And if you're wondering, April Fool's to you.
You fit the profile. You're the malcontent.
Nobody wants to hear the nonsensical ravings of a loudmouth malcontent.
He said malcontents, Antifa. Fuck you. You are the biggest hypocrite on the face of the planet.
I say that you're a terrible reporter. That's what I say.